Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Habs Corner. So the last episode I had last week, I started the season review going over the forward grades. So today we're going to do the defensemen, give them their grades on the season. And if I have time at the end, I'm going to touch up on a couple other little subjects. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's get into it. Alright, kiddies. So, I gotta lie, another night I got my notes here. I'm not going to remember all the stats, so I wrote them all down for you. So on defense for the season grades, we're going to start off with Mike Matheson. I'm going to give Matheson a solid A. 48 games played. He had 14 goals, 20 assists. And man, was he the glue that held this offense together a lot of times this year. I will say, the Habs, generally speaking, are not a great team at being offensively set up in the zone. We're a lot of a transition offense team. We get a lot of our goals and a lot of our offense output through the transition. And he was a big part of the times where we did have offensive zone pressure and just solid cycles all over the offensive zone. He's such a fluid skater. The way, obviously, I know I've reiterated this point about 50 times now. The way he just angles his skating to cut through players when he has the puck and just skate his way out of danger is incredible. Oftentimes it leads to him just being assertive in the way he carries the puck into the offensive zone and drives the play. Just the way he's able to allow other players to open up space for themselves because of that. And just when he does do that, he gains his ground back in defensive coverage pretty quickly. If there's a turnover, the puck's going the other way. We see he's a very active stick in the neutral zone. He's constantly anticipating plays in the neutral zone and using his skating to his ability on that too, and just being able to slice through and get into passing lanes and passing seams in the neutral zone like just robotically almost. It's pretty remarkable. There was a lot of talk about in his years in Florida and Pittsburgh. He has that ability, but at the same time, he makes poor decisions sometimes in defensive coverage and loses his man a lot. Is in the end, he gets himself wildly out of position at times in the defensive zone. You can see glimpses of that here and there, but I think he shored that up pretty well. Big improvement from his previous years in Florida and Pittsburgh. Obviously, I think Stefan Robitaille probably worked with him a little bit on that. You saw his defensive game improve in coverage, not losing his man as much, And I also liked, and Martin St. Louis talked about this a few times, his decision-making on when to skate through and just skate with the puck into the offensive zone, but also when to pass up at the right times and just defer to his defenseman or, just make another outlet option through the neutral zone instead of constantly just skating through traffic and pressure. Makes his game a little less predictable and a little less risky as well, I think. Just overall, when he has pressure on him, he handles it very well with whatever he does, it seems like, for the most part. So I believe we have 2 or 3 years left with Matheson on his deal, and man, I'm just super excited. If he's playing this good right now for us in this one season he had, which was basically half a season, my God, is he going to be something special for us coming down the line, especially with the prospects coming up. All right, moving on here. I'm going to try to make this a little quicker. I know I just praised Matheson for a few minutes there, so... David Savard, solid B+, man. 62 games played, 3 goals, 7 assists. Yeah, he was definitely overused in his role this year, because of all the injuries we've seen. He was playing top 6 minutes a lot of nights, and really he's a bottom pairing. He's a bottom, 5th or 6th string defenseman that really should only be playing around 15 minutes a night. He's playing north of 22, 23 minutes a night, 25 minutes often, and his advantages are that, obviously he's a shot blocking machine. Obviously we know that he makes pretty solid decisions with the puck when he has it in his own zone. We all know he has that inside toe drag move in the offensive zone when he walks the blue line to get in on an inside position towards the high slot. I like seeing that from him from time to time. So he can contribute a little bit offensively. He is slow. We all know that. He is slow around the net, keeping up with laterally east-west movements on shifty players. But for the most part, he makes up how slow he is in his game at the right times when he can anticipate that the puck is going into his area or the play is going to unfold into his area. He's already a step ahead of the play mentally. So his mental part of the game makes up for how slow he is at some points. But there are some weaknesses where you could see his slowness really not shine in a good way. But overall, I have to give him praise for how much he stepped up this year and how much he was a solid presence defensively for this team this year. With all the injuries throughout the season, and really kept the ship going a lot of times, a lot of nights with this young decor we had. There was a game, I believe it was against Edmonton, or it might have been against the New York Islanders on home ice. It was Super Bowl weekend, where David Savard was literally out on the penalty kill for the entire duration of a 5-on-3. And just stood in his spot for 2 whole minutes and blocked about 6 shots. I mean, that just says it all right there, That just really just sums it up, the type of warrior he is. Moving on here, Caden Gooley. I'm going to give Caden Gooley a B. 44 games played, 4 goals, 14 assists. Look, we all went into this season anticipating that oh my God, he is ready for the NHL. He had a really good training camp, really good preseason. It looked like it was really promising, and he lived up to it. With only the amount of games he played because of injuries, I should say. He really showed that he's NHL ready. He's sturdy. He knows how to just get things done defensively in his own end at the NHL level. He proved that. He can really just solidly separate his man from the puck. He can really just smother and kill plays along the boards. He's a really good net front presence in his own defensive end, just getting guys out of the way. All those little things defensively that you want to see out of a defenseman, he has. He makes a really good first pass. Doesn't seem like he ever panics too much, You could see sometimes he does a little bit here and there, make a little bit of a bad decision on his first pass, but overall it's pretty solid, and those aren't things he can just shore up with over a little bit of time, I think. We could see he jumps up on the play on the rush. He sees the ice pretty well. He's not afraid. He can contribute offensively. He knows how to be the fourth man on the cycle, game in the offensive zone at times. He has solid gap control. He really closes in on players and just he doesn't go in for the big hit either when he knows that's going to put him out of position. So I like that about him as well. Always seems to have an active stick in the defensive zone. Really knows and understands where the open space is in the defensive zone and where to put his stick to cover passing lanes. It seems like he's just solid all around defensively. Nothing but promising future to really basically see him as at least a top 4 defenseman in his prime. Moving on here, Jordan Harris. I'm gonna give him a solid B with 65 games played. He has good decision making, with the puck. He's another player that has a pretty decent first pass. He's a really methodical, logical player. It always seems like he's computing in his head when he has the puck of, calculating. I have this much pressure on me with these 2 guys, and my only logical, reasonable option is to wrap it around behind the net again, or to bank it off the glass, or I can make a stretch pass across the zone, maybe a little more authority. It seems like he's always taking a mental picture of numbers of players in front of him and when he can and when he can't jump up on the play. And when he does, he has the wheels and the speed to come in on the second wave or layer, what have you, on an odd man rush. So he does have some offensive flair to his game. I like in the offensive zone with Jordan Harris how he really. It always seems like when he has the puck, he seems to know which players have the most open amount of space, um, and can have a better view of the play itself. And he always seems to find those players, especially on the power play. That stood out to me a little bit throughout the season. So I like that part of Jordan Harris's game. More than likely probably a bottom to middle six defenseman. Could be on the second or third pairing. He's really not a number one defenseman. He's not the biggest player. I think he's under 200 pounds, and I think he's around 5'10", maybe. So he doesn't necessarily manhandle people along the boards, but he does have a pretty good active stick defensively, and when he does lose inside positioning on players, or he's not able to box out, he at least has that active stick and that agility to his game to make up ground a little bit in his gaps, which, it's solid. It's solid, I think. Moving on here, we're going to go to Justin Barron. 39 games played, 4 goals, 11 assists. Justin Barron got better overall as the season progressed when he had his call-up in January. When he was sent back down to Laval at the beginning of the year, you could tell. I think a lot of it was just up here. His confidence wasn't there with a lot of things, with his decision making, just overall, not just with the puck, just his decision making in general. You could see at times, he was just panicking with the puck, throwing it into spaces. A lot. He was going in for a big hit and putting himself out of play. He just seemed like he was not confident in being in the right space in the defensive zone. He wasn't making a presence in the offensive game either, I think. And I think when he had his call-up after spending that much time in Laval, I really think that did him good. And he just found his confidence. We saw him make a lot more deeper passes through the neutral zone. We saw him really step up at the right times and have better gap control on players. We saw him with the puck make better decisions with it. I think, I think a guy like Mike Matheson kind of rubbed off on him on his offensive game as well. I think he was paired with him a few times this year, and you could see that he really learned to be able to carry the play in the offensive zone a lot more because of that, I feel. When we saw he has an amazing shot. He can get that shot through traffic. So I'm going to give him a solid B. He definitely proved at the latter half of the season that he is NHL ready, and that he has potential to at least be an NHL defenseman. We don't know. I don't know exactly where yet. I'd like to see more of him, but I definitely want to see him stick around with the organization next year. Moving on. Let's see here. Kovacevic. Jonathan Kovacevic. 77 games played, 3 goals, 12 assists. Solid B. You want to talk about an unpraised, quiet hero. It's Jonathan Kovacevic. You really can. He's kind of a plug-in player on defense where he can just kind of mold himself in with any defense partner and just kind of be that safety valve, that safety outlet. Just always 9 times out of 10 he's going to be in position and he's going to make the right decision with the puck. He's not the most offensively flared, offensively gifted player defensively for a defenseman, but you could see he doesn't have panic to his game. He's really good at boxing people out in the defensive zone. He's really good at just staying on his man in general. Good net front presence, I think. And like I just said, not to repeat myself, but he does just make really simple plays look easy. And he just does all the little things correctly that allow him not to stand out in a bad way. Another player that has a really good net front presence. He has a good stick defensively, really, to just get in the passing lanes. He blocks a lot of shots. He definitely can handle an overload of players around the net and kind of just be able to push his way through it and clear out traffic from Montembeault or Jake Allen to see. Just he does all the little things solidly in a stable way. And a guy like Mike Matheson or any offensive defenseman is probably going to feel more comfortable knowing Kovacevic is back there to really understand and make the safer decision when he doesn't have the puck, so that guys like Matheson would be able to take off with the puck. So he's like a comforting defenseman, I think, and he really proved that he belongs. At least, we're going to have guys coming in and out on defense over the next year or two, especially with the prospects coming up. I'd like to see Kovacevic at least stay as a seventh defenseman, really. Even if he just came into the lineup because of, knock on wood, injuries or just player rest or what have you, just being at least that seventh defenseman. Definitely for sure, And I will say towards the end of the year, it really seemed like he was activating himself all over the ice in the offensive zone a lot more. He was definitely getting involved, making aggressive chips or pinches in the offensive zone to keep pucks in. He drove a couple plays into the offensive zone. We saw him get involved down low in the cycle game and actually drive towards the net. So I really like Kovacevic a lot. Moving on, our Jack guy. Oh man, Wi-Fi. I'm gonna give him a solid. I'm gonna give him a B. Just being maybe a little bit generous. We all know he can fight. He's not a guy to mess with. He's going to be definitely a protector on this team. He's definitely going to be an influence of toughness on this team going forward. He has that identity, and he earned that identity this year with the fights he was involved in. Just brings that grindy, tenacious, just tough it out type of attitude. He's heavy, physical. There's a few areas of work he can touch on. He definitely sometimes vacates the front of the net. Doesn't have the greatest net front presence all the time, and when he does go to retrieve pucks behind the net or lose a battle behind the net or what have you, or whatever's going on behind the net, and the play continues in their own defensive end, he does get lost getting back into coverage at times. I think his decision making with the puck could be, I'll get it a little bit smoother, shore up a little bit. I think he could make better first passes on some instances. Not all, but you could see a few here and there that stick out. I do like how he definitely seems to be good against shifty players along the boards, though, and just being able to just not allow those shifty players to make quick, slippery moves on him and lose inside positioning or just totally lose the play in general. He's able to just kill it off. He doesn't allow a lot of quickness and quick movements off of players to really get to him towards the inside of his positioning a lot, which I like. In the offensive zone, he does get accurate shots through traffic to the net, which is a key part of a good power play. So he has power play potential because of that. He can walk the blue line, hold the puck in, and make a move around people and sort of drive down lower into the offensive zone. So he does have a little bit of offensive game to him. We see him carry the puck up through the ice and actually carry it into the offensive zone and lead the rush a few times. Stop up delay on a good zone entry and make a good pass. So he has a little bit of offensive game to him as well. He's not just a physical tough guy. He can play some hockey. Joel Edmondson. Yeah, I'm gonna give him a C. 61 games played, 2 goals, 11 assists. I'm gonna give him a C because of a couple of things. One, he took generally throughout the year a lot of really dumb penalties. Cross checks for no reason, elbowing, it always seems like a few times he was just in poor positioning when he delivered hits, and it just seemed like careless penalties he took a lot throughout the year. There was that, and he just seemed like, especially coming back from that injury in the middle of the season, he was a little bit a step behind the play a lot of times, just kind of slow on anticipating and reading the play, just getting lost in coverage in general a few times. He's one of those players, and like I said in my other videos, where he really is better. He's really good playing man on man, and just kind of staying glued to one player and just taking away their time and space completely. And when we would get hemmed in our zone and he would be stuck in one area and just players coming in and out around him, especially against teams that were just really good at positionless offense, it seemed like he would just almost just be like a standstill mannequin out there at times. Players just doing give and goes and shifty, quick little moves around him a lot of times. So, that ruggedness and that physical play of just man on man is better with a team that's more solidly defensively stable, where he can really shine on that. But I do think on this team and how bad it was defensively a lot of times this year, that didn't help his case and how he kind of isn't the greatest when he's not just staying on one player, I think. So, I'm going to give him a C, and I don't really see with the direction the team's going. I don't know if Joel Edmondson's going to stick around, He's not the type of brand or the type of player that Martin St. Louis seems to be going in the direction of. He doesn't have that total offensive quickness and fluid puck moving like Martin St. Louis is really trying to coach. Martin St. Louis talks a lot about just creativeness and offensive flow in the offensive zone and just a lot of movement. And Joel Edmondson's more of almost like an old school hockey player, more rugged, just more stable back home defenseman a little bit. I'm just going to have to give him a C on the season. Moving on here, Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman's joined the D Club. He's going to join the D Club along there with Yoel Armia. 46 games played, no goals, 0. 6 assists. He loses his inside positioning on players a lot. He has poor positioning on plays. To basically leave passing lanes and shooting lanes wide open in and around him a lot of times. He doesn't seem to He does not seem to do that great against really high, fast-skilled teams. He can't handle it a lot of times. He just, it seems like players skate circles around him sometimes. He panics with the puck a lot of times. He'll just rip it off the glass blindly. Walking the blue line, he makes careless plays, turnovers right at the blue line in the offensive zone. Can't handle the puck and just be able to control it that well. Walking the blue line when pressure's right in his face. And I have to say, seeing him on the power play this year, he does not have the vision or the creativity to really drive a power play at all. That was just abysmal to watch him on the power play. I am going to have to give him a D on the season. I mean, he's just not a creative player in general. He didn't stand out too bad in a bad way against lesser teams or mediocre teams. He fit in. Didn't make himself noticeable in a bad way. It was just against the really high caliber teams that he stood out in a lot of negative ways. And really, guys, he's a 7th defenseman on any team, I think, at this point, that can rotate in and out of the lineup. I know we hear a lot how he's good in the locker room and how he has high spirits, and he talks a lot in the locker room, gets the guys' energy up, gets just good positive vibes in the locker room with a lot of guys, and he's a good influence. But really, he's a 7th defenseman. So yeah, moving on. I'm going to do the goalie grades as well. I'm going to do Montembeault and Allen's goalie grades on the season, guys. So I'm going to start off with Sam Montembeault. I'm going to give Montembeault an A- on the year. I think, see what the stats are here for you guys. I'm going to get the Carfax going. All right. 40 games played, 16 wins, 19 losses, 3 overtime losses, 901 save percentage, 342 goals allowed average. And my God, did he improve this year. Going into this season, obviously a lot of people had questions about his consistency, questions about whether or not he can actually handle the NHL at all, backup or starter. And now the question going into this offseason is he a solid starter, or can he be in a tandem splitting the workload 50-50 with another goaltender as a semi-starter, 1A, 1B setup? Definitely an NHLer, no hands down, no argument about that. He definitely has smoother movements to the series, not as deep in his net this year in general. He just has more efficiency to his game, where he's not swimming in net. He has more calculated movements where he just makes one simple pad save or just movement with his arm to make a save. It doesn't seem like he's just wildly all over the place, more controlled, and there's more power and more push to his lateral movements left to right, And it just seems like he really, really, truly honed in on finding his game at the NHL level this year. And for the most part, he improved with his consistency in that as well. We definitely saw him be able to show that he can handle consistently more games and continue to play and make key saves in each game. In the games that he did play poorly, he, for the most part in general, other than a couple times being pulled, it showed he fought through those games and stayed in the game and kind of kept everything at bay. After letting in a few goals or just had a bad game in general, he'd show up and then at the following game have a pretty solid game. We still need to see a little bit more consistency in his game to really convince me that he is a solid starting goaltender. But, destiny is in his control on that part, That's all he has to prove really throughout the next season. Is he a solid starter, or does he split the workload? And I think he has the potential to prove that next season that he can be the solid starter if he just can show a little bit more consistency on after having a great game. Can he have another great game and another great game? Instead of this year, it was a great game, had a great game, and then you have a good or an okay game, and then maybe a bad game, and then a great game. Can he have like 3 or 4 great games in a row? I know, it's a lot. Jake Allen, I'm going to give him a B. Stats, 42 games played, 15 wins, 24 losses, 3 overtime losses, and 891 save percentage. 355 goals allowed average. Solid veteran presence, good with the guys in the locker room. And it seems like he just has a positive attitude. He's not looking at the competition with Montembeault in a bad way. Seems like he's a really good influence on Montembeault, always encouraging him. So that in that sense, you do think it's a good thing to keep a guy like Jake Allen around for another year, while you're really trying to figure out Montembeault next season, possibly. But overall, this year you could really see that he had a lot of trouble with the workload as the season went on. You could tell he was getting tired and not just this overall season stamina. He was kind of losing that as the games went on throughout the year. You could tell when he got rattled with letting in some bad goals or had some bad games. It definitely got to him mentally, and he was pulled a lot of times out of those games instead of being able to stick through it. Not to say he definitely kept us in a lot of games, especially more towards the beginning of the year. He does make timely saves sometimes, but his consistency himself isn't all there. I'm not a goalie expert. I don't know everything about goaltenders. I never played the position, but he would make timely saves, but he'd also let in some bad goals here and there at untimely times. I think on a really good team, Jake Allen's a solid backup goaltender. If we don't acquire a goaltender in the offseason or figure out if Jakub Dobish or another goaltender in the draft comes through or anything like that, or we just something, it doesn't pan out, I could see him being the backup again next year, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So I'm going to give Jake Allen a solid B for what he did this year, sticking around the team, being a team player, and being a good presence for the guys. Yeah, so that's really all I got for this episode. That was part 2 for the season review. Did the defenseman grades and the goaltender grades as well. I'm going to be coming up with just an overall season opinion and just season wrap-up episode, going over the coaching staff, the storylines of the season, injury, the whole injury overview, and just going over my opinion on the injury overview as a whole and how it needs to be addressed and what to look for and what we're going to be doing in the off season. So that'll be coming up pretty soon, guys. Hope you guys are catching up on the Stanley Cup playoff games. There's been some really good games already. It's already been really intense. I think you can see a lot of these playoff series are probably going to go to 7 games. There's just nothing like playoff hockey. It's a different animal. It's a totally different game than the regular season. I enjoy watching a lot of it. I hope you guys are catching up. So, all right, guys, go Habs, go, and I'll talk to you guys next time.